The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched upward like the inside of a cathedral. Lights floated in the air without wires or supports. 12 platforms rose from the polished floor, each one holding the representatives of species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. At the lowest platform, barely above the floor itself, stood Ambassador Kim Yuna of Earth. She was a small woman by any standard. Her black hair was pulled back tight, and her dark eyes showed no emotion as she looked up at the beings who considered themselves her betters. She had been standing there for 3 hours, waiting for permission to speak. High Speaker Velthus finally raised one of his forearms. He was an Orvani, a species so old that they had forgotten more history than humanity had ever made. His skin was the color of dried leaves, and his eyes held the tired patience of someone who had seen too much. "The human representative may now address the council," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through empty halls. Yuna bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, High Speaker. I come before this council with a matter of great urgency. In the past 6 months, Corvani warships have crossed into human space 17 times. They have scanned our colonies. They have followed our merchant ships. Last week they fired warning shots at a civilian transport carrying children to a new settlement." A sound came from one of the higher platforms. It was laughter. Commander Threx of the Corvani Empire leaned forward, his massive body covered in thick gray scales. His teeth were yellow and sharp, and he showed all of them when he smiled. "Warning shots," he repeated. "The humans speak of warning shots as if they were acts of war. Perhaps if your ships were not so slow and weak, they would not need warnings to move out of our way." Several other representatives made sounds of amusement. Counselor Mirael of the Sindari, a tall being with silver skin and no visible eyes, tilted her head in what passed for a smile among her kind. "The human ambassador is young," Mirael said. Her voice was smooth like oil on water. "Her species is young. They do not understand that space is vast, and borders are merely suggestions between friends." "We are not friends with the Corvani," Yuna replied. Her voice remained calm. "They have made that clear." High Speaker Velthus raised his hand again. "Ambassador Kim, the Council has reviewed your complaints. We find them to be exaggerated. The Corvane have assured us that any incidents were minor misunderstandings. We suggest that humanity learn to be more flexible in matters of territorial interpretation." Yuna stood very still. "More flexible," she repeated. "Indeed. Your species has been part of this council for only 40 years. That is less than a heartbeat in galactic time. You must understand that certain adjustments are expected from newer members." Before Yuna could respond, a light flashed on her personal communicator. She looked down at it, and for just a moment, something changed in her eyes. It was there and gone so quickly that no one noticed. "High Speaker," she said, "I have just received a report from the colony world of New Busan." "And what does this report say?" 3 hours ago, a Corvani raiding party landed on the surface. They attacked the main settlement." She paused. 3,216 civilians are dead. Most of them were farmers. 243 were children. The chamber went quiet. Even Commander Threx stopped smiling. "Unfortunate," Velthos said slowly. "However, we must investigate before making any judgments. The Corvani may have had reasons." "Reasons?" Yuna's voice did not rise. If anything, it became softer. "What reasons justify the murder of children who were growing vegetables?" Threx leaned forward again. "Your colony was built on a world that the Corvani Empire claimed centuries ago. Your people were trespassers. We simply removed them. That world was empty when we arrived. It had been empty for 200 years. Well, empty or not, it was ours. Humanity should have asked permission." Yuna turned to look at the other council members. Some looked away. Others studied the walls or the ceiling. Counselor Mireia was cleaning her long silver fingers, as if the conversation bored her. "I request that the council take action against the Corvani Empire for this attack," Yuna said. "I request justice for the people of New Busan." Svelthos sighed. "We will take a vote. All those in favor of sanctions against the Corvani Empire?" One hand rose. It belonged to a small representative from a species that humanity had helped during a famine 3 years ago. No other hands moved? All those opposed? 11 hands rose. The motion fails, Velthos announced. The Council considers this matter a minor territorial dispute. We encourage humanity and the Corvani to resolve their differences through dialogue. Una looked at the High Speaker for a long moment. Then she looked at Threx, who was smiling again. Then at Morel, who had not even bothered to look up from her fingers. She looked at each of the 11 representatives who had voted against her. I understand, she said finally. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps were the only sound in the vast chamber. Ambassador Kim Velthus called out, Do you not have anything else to say? No arguments? No appeals? Una stopped at the door. She did not turn around. No, High Speaker. I believe everything that needed to be said has been said, not by me. By all of you. She walked out. The doors closed behind her with a soft sound. In the chamber, the representatives looked at each other with expressions that were hard to read. Commander Threx laughed and made a joke about human weakness. Miriel agreed that the young species would learn its place soon enough. But High Speaker Velthos did not laugh. He had lived for 800 years, and he had learned to recognize dangerous moments. Something about the human woman's silence bothered him. He had expected anger. He had expected tears or threats or desperate pleas. He had not expected quiet acceptance. He had not expected her to simply walk away in his experience. When someone stopped arguing, it meant they had found a different solution. And solutions that did not involve words usually involve something else entirely. He pushed the thought aside. Humanity was weak. Everyone knew this. They had only been among the stars for 2 centuries. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were primitive. They were barely worth considering. He told himself this, and he almost believed it. In the corridor outside, Ambassador Kimuna walked alone. Her face showed nothing. Her steps were steady and measured. She reached a window and stopped, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3,000 of her people lay dead in fields they had planted with hope. She pulled out her communicator and typed a single word. The message traveled across the void of space to a ship waiting in the darkness. On that ship, Admiral Park Doan read the word and nodded slowly. The word was, Begin. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, Earth's moon, a room existed that no alien had ever seen. The walls were made of plain gray metal. The lights were simple and bright. There were no decorations, no floating displays, no advanced technology visible to impress visitors. Humanity had learned early that showing strength invited challenge, so they hid their strength instead. Admiral Park Doan stood at the head of a long table. He was 53 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that rarely smiled. His uniform was simple black with no medals or ribbons. He had earned many, but he never wore them. Medals were for those who needed others to know their worth. Around the table sat the people, who truly led humanity among the stars. Dr. Choi Hanna, chief scientist, was reviewing data on a tablet. Her glasses reflected scrolling numbers and charts. Captain Lee Tai-woo, the youngest person in the room at 31, was drawing something on a piece of paper with an actual pencil. Lieutenant Beek Sunwoo sat quietly, his fingers moving slightly as if practicing words in languages no one else in the room could speak. The door opened, and Ambassador Kim Yuna walked in. She looked tired. The journey from Council Space had taken 2 days, and she had not slept. Report, Doan said. They refused. 11-1 against any action. Threx laughed when he heard about the dead children. Yuna sat down heavily. They do not see us as equals. They never have. They never will. Dr. Hanna looked up from her tablet. Then we proceed with the secondary plan? Doan nodded slowly. Captain Lee, show us what you have prepared. Taiwu stood and walked to a screen on the wall. He pressed a button, and a map of space appeared. Red dots showed Corvani positions. Blue dots showed what the Council believed were all of humanity's ships, clustered near Earth and a few colony worlds. Is what they think we have, Taiwu said. 30 combat vessels. 50 support ships. Enough to defend our core worlds, maybe. Enough to threaten no one. He pressed another button. The map changed. Now there were blue dots everywhere, hidden in asteroid fields, orbiting dead stars, waiting in the empty spaces between systems. There were hundreds of them. This is what we actually have. 842 combat vessels. 200 of them are heavy carriers. We have been building in secret for 35 years, ever since we realized the Council would never respect us. Lieutenant Sunwoo spoke for the first time. The Council monitors all communications. How have we hidden this? We use old technology, Dr. Hannah answered. Radio waves. Physical messengers. Written letters carried by trusted captains. The Council stopped using such methods 1,000 years ago. They forgot that simple does not mean weak. Doan walked to the screen. The Corvani are planning 3 more raids. Their targets are the colonies of New Sajong Honde Station and the farming moon of Gimhae. Intelligence suggests they will attack within 2 weeks. We could warn the colonies, Yuna said. Evacuate them. We could. But the Corvani would simply wait and attack later. And the Council would say we were overreacting. Again, Doan turned to face the table. I am proposing Operation Silent Thunder, a preemptive strike against the entire Corvani raiding fleet. Complete destruction. No survivors. No warnings. The room was quiet. It would be an act of war, Yuna said. They killed our people. They laughed about it. The Council did nothing. We are already at war. The only question is whether we fight it or let them slaughter us slowly. Captain Taiwu pointed to the map. The Corvani raiding fleet is 200 ships. They keep them stationed at Corvani Prime, ready to deploy. If we hit them there, we eliminate their ability to attack our colonies for years. And the Council? Yuna asked. The Council will be angry. The Council will make demands. The Council will threaten. Doan's voice was flat. And then they will do nothing, because they cannot do anything. They need us more than they know. Dr. Hannah stood and walked to another screen. She activated it, showing charts and graphs. For the past 40 years, humanity has been quietly solving problems for the Council. We developed the cure for the Orvani plague. We created the navigation systems that half the Council species now use. We trained military officers from 7 different worlds. We protected trade routes from pirates without asking for payment or recognition. We did this because we believed in cooperation, Yuna said quietly. We believed they would eventually accept us. They will not. They have made that clear. Hannah turned off the screen. But they have also made themselves dependent on us without realizing it. When we leave, they will discover how much they needed us. The word hung in the air. Leave. You are suggesting we withdraw from the Council entirely? Sunwoo said. Duhan nodded. After the strike, we formally withdraw. All human personnel, scientists, diplomats, traders, everyone. We return to our own space. We close our borders. We stop helping them. And if they attack us, they will not. They do not have the ships or the courage. The Corvani were the only ones aggressive enough to test us. And after Silent Thunder, they will be too weak to threaten anyone. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. Before we do this, I want one more chance. I want to return to the Council with evidence of the planned attacks. I want to give them one final opportunity to do the right thing. They will not. But I need to know that we tried everything. I need to be able to tell myself and tell our children that we gave them every chance. Doan looked at her. Something softened in his hard face. Very well. You have 1 week. Present your evidence. Make your case. And when they refuse again, we proceed. 7 days later, Ambassador Yuna stood once more in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. This time she carried a small device that projected images into the air. She showed intercepted communications. She showed ship movements. She showed the names and locations of the 3 colonies that would be attacked. This is not speculation, she said. This is fact. The Corvani are planning to kill more of our people. I am asking the Council to intervene before it happens. High Speaker Velthus looked uncomfortable. Several other representatives shifted in their seats. The evidence was clear. Even they could not ignore it. Then Commander Threx stood. This evidence is fake. The humans have created it to make the Corvani look aggressive. They want to justify their own expansion. They want to steal our territory. That is a lie, Una said. Prove it, I just did. The evidence is right here. The evidence can be manufactured. Everyone knows humans are clever with machines. Too clever. Perhaps dangerously clever. Elthus raised his hand. The Council will investigate these claims. We will form a committee. We will study the evidence. In 6 months, we will issue a report. 6 months? The attacks will happen in days. These things cannot be rushed, Ambassador. Surely you understand. Una looked around the chamber one last time. She saw fear in some eyes, contempt in others, and indifference in most. She realized that they were not refusing to help because they could not see the truth. They were refusing because they simply did not care. She turned off the projection device. She straightened her back, and then she spoke words that would echo through history. We came to you as friends. We offered our hands in peace. We asked for nothing but fairness. You have given us silence when we needed words, and laughter when we needed justice. She paused. Remember this day. Remember that you chose this. She turned and walked toward the door. Is that a threat, Ambassador? Threx called out mockingly. Una stopped. She looked over her shoulder. Commander. It is a goodbye. She pulled out her communicator and sent a single message to Admiral Doan. Proceed. The Corvani raiding fleet floated in the darkness near their homeworld. 200 ships of war, painted in the red and black colors of conquest. Their crews were relaxed. Some were sleeping. Others were playing games of chance or telling stories of past victories. In 3 days, they would attack another human colony. It would be easy, they believed. Humans were soft. Humans were weak. Humans did not fight back. General Boreth sat in his command chair on the flagship, drinking warm blood wine from a metal cup. He was thinking about the attack. He was thinking about how many humans he would kill and how many he would take as slaves. He was thinking about the promotions and medals he would receive. He was not thinking about the stars. If he had been watching them, he might have noticed something strange. The stars were disappearing. One by one, small sections of the sky went black, as if something was moving in front of them. Something large. Something close. Captain Lee Tai-Wu watched through the bridge windows of his carrier, the Baekdu. Around him, 99 other human warships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They had jumped to a point just 30,000 kilometers from the Corvani fleet. It was dangerously close. It was also perfect. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Sun Wu said from his communications station. Fire, Tai-Wu said. 100 ships fired at once. Human weapons were different from anything the Council had seen. They did not use the standard energy beams that most species preferred. Instead, they launched physical projectiles, small metal rods accelerated to enormous speeds by magnetic rails. The Council had dismissed such weapons as primitive. They had not understood that primitive could also mean unstoppable. The first wave of rods hit the Corvani fleet before their shields could activate. 30 ships exploded instantly. The rest scrambled to respond, but they were confused. Their sensors showed 100 enemy ships, but that was impossible. Humans only had 30 ships total. Everyone knew that General Boreth screamed orders. His ship shook as a rod passed through the hull and out the other side. Emergency lights turned the bridge red. Alarms filled the air with noise. Return fire, he shouted. Destroy them. His ships fired back, but human ships were already moving. They were fast, faster than Corvani vessels, and they worked together with perfect coordination. Every time a Corvani ship tried to target one human vessel, 2 others would attack from different angles. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, 197 Corvani warships were dead in space. Their hulls floated in pieces, mixing with the bodies of their crews. General Boreth's flagship was among them. He died still believing that this was some kind of trick, some kind of mistake. Humans could not do this. It was not possible. Captain Tewu looked at the destruction and felt nothing. He was not proud. He was not satisfied. He was simply doing what needed to be done. Lieutenant Sunwoo broadcast on all frequencies. Council standard, Corvani military, civilian channels. Everyone should hear this. Sunwoo nodded and opened the channels. Taiwu spoke clearly and slowly. This is Captain Lee Taiwu of the United Earth Fleet. The Corvani raiding force has been destroyed. This action was taken in response to unprovoked attacks on human civilians. Humanity does not seek war, but we will defend our people. Any further attacks on human territory will be met with the same response. End message. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. Take us home. On the Galactic Council station, chaos erupted. Representatives ran through corridors, shouting and demanding explanations. How had this happened? Where had the human ships come from? What did this mean? High Speaker Velthos called an emergency session. The chamber was full within an hour. Every species was represented. Fear and anger filled the air like smoke. This is an outrage. Commander Threx's replacement, a younger Corvani named Vorkan, was shouting. His scales were dark with rage. The humans attacked without warning. Without declaration of war, they murdered our soldiers. Your soldiers were preparing to murder our farmers, a calm voice replied. Everyone turned. Ambassador Kim Yuna walked into the chamber. She was not alone. Behind her came every human diplomat, scientist, and advisor who had been working in council space. There were over 300 of them. Ambassador Kim Velthus said, You will explain the meaning of this attack immediately. I owe you no explanations, High Speaker. I warned you. I showed you evidence. You chose to ignore it. You chose to let the Corvani kill our people. We chose to stop them. You cannot simply attack a council member without consequences. Consequences. Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. What consequences? What will you do? Attack us. With what ships? The Corvani were the only ones willing to fight us, and they are broken now. Sanction us. We do not need your trade. Expel us from the council. She paused. That brings me to my announcement. She held up a document printed on actual paper in the old human tradition. This is the formal declaration of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all human personnel will leave council space. All joint projects are terminated. All trade agreements are canceled. All defensive partnerships are ended. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded that the humans be stopped. Others asked what would happen to their projects, their agreements, their plans. Velthus raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. Ambassador, this is extreme. Surely we can negotiate. Surely there is some way to resolve this misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, High Speaker. You understood us perfectly. You simply did not care. And now we do not care about you. She turned and walked toward the exit. The other humans followed her. They moved in silence, their footsteps echoing through the chamber like a funeral march. Counselor Miriel stood suddenly. Wait, what about the research station on Sindari Prime? Human scientists are conducting vital experiments there. You cannot simply abandon them. We're not abandoning anything. We are taking our people home. The experiments will end. The data will go with us. But those experiments are essential. They are developing cures for diseases that affect half the council species. Yuna stopped at the door. She looked back at Miriel with cold eyes. Perhaps you should have thought of that before you voted to let the Corvani slaughter our children. She walked out. The doors closed behind her. Over the next 7 days, humanity vanished from council space. Ships arrived at stations and colonies, loading human workers and their families. Equipment was packed. Files were deleted or taken. Laboratories were emptied. Trading posts went dark. Lieutenant Sunwoo broadcast the final human message on the last day. It was simple and short. United Earth Federation is closing its borders to all council traffic. We will defend our space. We will not attack yours. We ask only to be left alone. Do not contact us. We will not respond. Then the human ships activated engines that the Council had never seen. They folded space in ways that should have been impossible. They disappeared from sensors as if they had never existed. High Speaker, Belthus stood in the empty chamber after everyone else had left. He looked at the lowest platform, where the human representative had always stood. It was just a platform now. Just empty space? He had lived for 800 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species destroy each other over pride and foolishness. And now, for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear, because he was beginning to understand what the Council had lost. Not an enemy. Not a rival. They had lost the only species that had ever genuinely wanted to help them, expected nothing in return, and been answered with contempt. He wondered what would happen next. He was afraid to find out. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and the Galactic Council was falling apart. High Speaker Veltha sat in his private chamber, reading reports that grew worse every day. His 4 hands held different documents, each one bringing news of another disaster. He had not slept properly in weeks. His old body was tired, but there was no time for rest. The first problem was the Corvani. After losing their raiding fleet, they should have been weak and quiet. Instead, they had gone mad with rage. They blamed the Council for not protecting them. They blamed the other species for not joining their fight against humanity. And since they could not reach the humans behind their closed borders, they attacked everyone else instead. 3 Sindari trading stations had been destroyed. 2 Orvani research outposts had been raided. The Corvani were no longer following any rules or treaties. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who resisted. Councillor Mirial had demanded that the Council send a unified fleet to stop them. But there was no unified fleet. There had never been one. When threats appeared in the past, the Council had always relied on various member species to contribute ships. Usually the humans had quietly organized these efforts. Coordinating between species who hated each other, finding compromise where none should have been possible. Without the humans, no one could agree on anything. The Sindari wanted the Orvani to send their ships first. The Orvani refused to fight alongside the Velithians because of a war that had ended 3,000 years ago. The smaller species had no ships to send at all. Velthus put down one report and picked up another. This one was about trade routes. Humanity had protected the major shipping lanes for decades. Their ships had patrolled the empty spaces between stars, hunting pirates and escorting merchant vessels. They had never asked for payment. They had never demanded special treatment. They had simply done it because it needed to be done and because it helped everyone. Now the pirates were returning. 3 major trade routes had been closed after attacks. Goods were not moving. Prices were rising. Several smaller species were reporting food shortages because supply ships could not reach them safely. The third report was the worst. It came from Orvani medical facilities across Council space. Dr. Choi. Kana's team had been working on treatments for several diseases that affected the older species. The Orvani in particular were vulnerable to a condition that slowly destroyed their memories. Hannah's research had been close to a breakthrough. Another year, maybe 2, and they would have had a cure. But Hannah was gone now. Back in human space, with all her research and all her equipment, and the disease continued to spread. 12 Orvani colony worlds had reported new cases. Without the cure, millions would lose their minds before they lost their lives. Velthus had sent a diplomatic ship to human space, carrying a message asking for reconciliation. The ship had found only an automated beacon floating at the border. The beacon repeated the same message every hour. Humanity is not available. Please do not contact us again. The ship had waited for 3 days, broadcasting requests for communication. No one had answered. Eventually it had returned home with nothing. In the council chamber, the sessions had become shouting matches. Vorkon of the Corvani demanded that the council declared war on humanity for their unprovoked attack. Rael of the Sindari blamed Vorkon's predecessor for starting the conflict in the first place. Representatives accused each other of secret deals and hidden agendas. Yesterday, the Velithian representative had thrown a chair at the Corvani ambassador. Security had been called. The session had ended early. Velthus remembered when the council had worked, when species had disagreed but still found ways to cooperate, when problems had been solved through discussion and compromise. He realized now that much of that success had come from the humans. Ambassador Yuna had spent countless hours in private meetings, talking to representatives who refused to talk to each other. She had found common ground where there was none. She had suggested solutions that allowed everyone to save face. She had done this work quietly, without credit, without recognition, and the council had repaid her by laughing at her people's deaths. A chime sounded at his door. Velthus called for the visitor to enter. It was his aide, a young Orvani named Salith. "Hi, Speaker. You asked to be informed of any news from the human border?" "Yes. What have you learned?" Salith looked uncomfortable. "Our long-range sensors have detected activity in human space. They are building something. Many things. Our analysts believe they are constructing new stations, new ships, new defenses. They are preparing for war." "No, High Speaker. They are preparing for something else." Salatha handed over a data tablet. "We intercepted some communications. They were not encrypted. The humans wanted us to hear them." Velthus looked at the data. It took him a moment to understand what he was seeing. The humans were building shelters. Not weapons, not warships, but shelters. Massive stations designed to hold millions of people. Medical facilities capable of treating diseases from dozens of species. Food production centers that could feed entire worlds. "They knew," Velthos whispered. "Knew what, High Speaker?" "They knew we would fall apart without them. They knew we would fight each other, that we would suffer, that we would face disasters we could not handle alone." He set down the tablet. "And they are preparing to survive while we destroy ourselves." Salaith was quiet for a moment. "Do you think they will help us?" "Eventually. I do not know. I hope so. But hope is not something I have much of anymore." That night, Velthus stood alone on a balcony overlooking the council station. Ships moved in the distance, carrying representatives who could not agree on anything. Somewhere out there, the Corvani were attacking another target. Somewhere else, pirates were raiding another convoy. Somewhere, people were dying from diseases that humans could have cured. He thought about Ambassador Yuna. He remembered her standing in the chamber, small and alone, asking for justice for her murdered people. He remembered the council's response. They had laughed at her. They had dismissed her concerns. They had called her species young and primitive and unimportant, and she had simply walked away. That was the thing that haunted him most. She had not screamed. She had not threatened. She had not begged or pleaded. She had looked at them with those dark human eyes, said goodbye, and left. In his 800 years, Velthus had never been more frightened of anyone than he was of Kim Yuna in that moment, because her silence had been the silence of someone who no longer cared what happened to them. He had spent his life believing that anger was the most dangerous emotion. He had been wrong. Indifference was far worse. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was building its future. They were preparing for whatever came next. They were protecting their people and their worlds, and they had stopped caring whether the council lived or died. Velthus looked up at the stars and wondered if there was any way to fix what had been broken. He wondered if the humans would ever forgive them. Deep in his heart, he already knew the answer, but he was too afraid to admit it. 2 years after humanity closed its borders, the sky began to fall. It started at the edge of council space, in a region so far from the core worlds that no one important lived there. A small observation post detected strange readings, energy signatures that did not match any known technology. The operator sent a report to the nearest military station. The report was filed and forgotten. 3 weeks later, the observation post went silent. A patrol ship was sent to investigate. It found nothing but debris and strange organic material floating in space. The material was tested. The results made no sense. It was alive, but not in any way that biology understood. It consumed metal and energy and grew. By the time the council realized what was happening, 4 colony worlds had been destroyed. They called it the Swarm. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted. It did not communicate. It did not negotiate. It simply arrived, consumed everything in its path, and moved on. Ships, stations, planets, all were food to it. It grew larger with every world it took. High Speaker Velthus called an emergency session, but half the representatives did not come. The Corvani were too busy fighting their own wars. The Sindari had retreated to their homeworlds and sealed their borders. The smaller species were fleeing in all directions. Hoping to escape what was coming, the Council fleet, such as it was, engaged the swarm at the Orvani colony of Thren. 80 warships against a mass of organic ships that seemed to number in the thousands. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 12 Council ships remained. The swarm had barely slowed down. Velthus sat alone in his chamber, reading the casualty reports. Names scrolled past, too many to count. Soldiers, civilians, families, all gone. And the swarm was still coming. His aide, Salaith, entered without knocking. His face was pale. "Hi, Speaker. You need to see this." She led him to a secure communication room. On the screen was an image that made Velthos stop breathing. It was a human warning beacon, the kind that humanity used to mark dangers in space. But this one was old. The date stamp showed it had been placed in Council space 15 years ago. "We found hundreds of them," Salaith said, "all along the outer edge of Council territory. They have been there for years. Broadcasting warnings. Warnings about what?" She played the beacon's message. A human voice spoke calmly and clearly. "Attention all vessels. Deep space surveys have detected an approaching threat of unknown origin. Estimated arrival in Council space, 10 to 20 years. Recommend immediate defensive preparations. Contact Earth Command for more information." Velthos felt his heart sink. They knew. They tried to warn us. We searched our records. Ambassador Yuna raised this issue with the Council 6 times between 20 years ago and 15 years ago. Each time, the Council voted to dismiss her concerns. The phrase used was human paranoia and overreaction. Velthus closed his eyes. He remembered those sessions. He remembered being annoyed at the humans for wasting the Council's time with their fears, about some distant threat that might never come. "They have been preparing for this," he said quietly. "For 15 years. While we laughed at them, they were building defenses, developing weapons, getting ready for what they knew was coming." "Hi, Speaker? And now we have nothing." "And they have everything." "Yes, High Speaker." Velthos made a decision. It was a desperate decision, the act of a drowning man reaching for anything that might float. But he had no other choice. "Prepare my ship. I am going to human space." The journey took 4 days. Velthus traveled with only a small escort, 3 ships that could be spared from the failing defense. When they reached the human border, they found the same automated beacon that previous visitors had encountered. But Velthus did not stop there. He flew past the beacon, into human space. He expected to be intercepted, challenged, perhaps destroyed. He did not care. If he was going to die, he would die trying. His ship was stopped 2 light years inside human territory. A human vessel appeared out of nowhere, much larger than anything Velthus had expected. It matched speed with his ship and opened communications. A human face appeared on the screen. It was Captain Li Taiwu, the same man who had destroyed the Corvani fleet. "Hi, Speaker Velthus. You are in restricted space. Turn around. Need to speak with your leaders. Please. The Council is dying. The swarm is destroying everything. Millions have already been killed. We need help." Taiwu's expression did not change. "We are aware of the situation." "Then you must help us. We cannot defeat this enemy alone. That is not our concern." Velthus felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. "Captain, I understand that we treated your people badly. I understand that we ignored your warnings and dismissed your concerns. But this is not about the past. This is about survival. If the swarm destroys the Council, it will eventually come for humanity too. No, it will not. The certainty in Taiwu's voice was chilling. Velthus realized what it meant. You have weapons that can stop it. Defenses we do not have, yes. Why will you not share them? Why will you not fight with us? Taiwu leaned forward. His eyes were cold and hard. Do you remember New Busan, High Speaker? 3,000 people died there. Farmers, children, they were growing food to feed their families. The Corvini killed them, and you did nothing. You called it a minor territorial dispute. I know. I am sorry. We were wrong. Sorry is a word. It means nothing. Velthus bowed his head. Then what will mean something? What can we do to earn your help? The screen flickered. Taiwu's image was replaced by another. It was Admiral Park Doan, older and grayer than the last time Velthus had seen a picture of him. High Speaker Doan said, I will tell you the truth because you deserve to hear it. Humanity will not help the Council. We will not send our ships to die for people who wished us harm. We will not sacrifice our children to save those who laughed when our children died. Then we are lost. That is not our responsibility. Doan paused. But I will answer your earlier question. You asked if we ever truly needed the Council, I remember. Answer's no. We never needed you. We joined the Council because we hoped to find allies. We hoped to build friendships. We hoped that by helping others, we would create a community of species that cared for each other. His voice hardened. You taught us that hope was foolish. You taught us that kindness is weakness. You taught us that the only way to survive is alone. Velthus felt tears forming in his ancient eyes. Is there nothing we can do? Doan was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, and his voice was quieter. Go home, High Speaker. Gather your people. Protect what you can. Fight with everything you have. And when the darkness comes, remember that it did not have to be this way. Remember that there was a time when humanity reached out its hand in friendship, and you slapped it away. The screen went dark. Velthus returned to Council space. He tried to organize a defense, but there was nothing left to organize. The swarm consumed 3 more worlds while he was traveling. Species that had fought each other for centuries now fled together. Their ancient hatreds, meaningless against an enemy that did not care about politics or borders, in the final days. High Speaker Velthus stood on the bridge of an evacuation ship, watching the Council homeworlds burn. Refugees filled the corridors, millions of beings from dozens of species. All of them running from something they could not stop. He thought about the humans. He wondered what they were doing while the Council died. He imagined them in their protected worlds, watching the distant lights of destruction from safe harbors, and he understood, finally, what Ambassador Yuna had meant when she walked out of the Council chamber 2 years ago. She had not left in anger. She had left in sorrow. Sorrow for what could have been. Sorrow for the friendship that was offered and rejected. Sorrow for the future that would never exist because of the Council's pride and cruelty. Somewhere in human space, Kim Yuna stood at a window, looking at the same stars. She could see the light of dying worlds, faint flickers in the endless darkness. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She felt no victory, no satisfaction, no joy. She felt only the cold weight of a tragedy that did not have to happen. We offered our hand, she whispered to the silence. You chose to slap it away. Now you reach for it from the fire and find only empty air. Behind her, human worlds continued their quiet lives. Children went to school. Farmers tended their crops. Scientists worked on new discoveries. The swarm would never reach them. They had prepared too well, built too strong, learned too thoroughly the lesson that the galaxy had taught them. Trust no one. Depend on no one. Stand alone. It was a sad lesson. But it was the only one the Council had been willing to teach, and humanity had learned it perfectly.